Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I'm your host, Adam Portress, and joining me today, if you think Haro's hair was sweet, you ain't seen his hair in the 90s. Sweet Sean Zakovacs from the internet.
About as big.
And he was needing a new short guy with a big hat to cosplay as Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and none of my ancestors flew Nazi planes.
Well, it's always a good thing not to have that in your in your background, I always say. Well, welcome back, everybody. You know what it is. It's May, so it is indeed anime. It's gonna be. There you go. And we're continuing on this month with... There's a couple of different names that it's been thrown out, but Arcadia of My Youth from 1982 is what we'll be covering here today. And I think that we can actually, if this goes well or goes bad, I think we can put most of the blame on Patreon supporter Matthew Vandiver, because he is the one who suggested this. I went out to him because I'm like, you know more about this stuff than I do, so I took a waiver on him, and we'll see if Matthew's selection here for me has panned out. Otherwise, I'm going to get very, very angry. But thank you so much to everyone like Matthew that supports us over at patreon.com/HMP. Pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone, you know the whole deal. And of course, this week, we talked about on the Dinger Zone what we're actually going to be reviewing next week for our Patreon selection. And I thought I had the little thing pulled up, but apparently I don't.
We're going to vote on some stuff.
Oh, here we go. I got it. It finally came up. So here are the choices for the Patreon vote for this month. We have Attack on Titan. We're going to watch the first 6 episodes of that. Or we'll watch a little something from Star Wars Vision, a movie called Your Name. Is that correct, Bruce? I get that right?
Yep.
And Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. And what's the arc that we're looking for there, Bruce?
The Show Tucker arc.
Okay, apparently we know what that is, or at least we'll find out if that gets voted on. And lastly, Transor Z. Sean, for the people that are out there that don't know what Transor Z is, hip them.
It's a little show for the dirty babies out there. Just like me. I was a dirty baby. If you were a dirty baby and you watched that dirty Transor Z because Voltron wasn't on, then this is the show for you. It's like the Family Dollar version of Voltron, and he's got his buddy robot with him, Aphrodite A, who, if you did not listen last week, her main defense system is her boobs or projectiles that are missiles, and it is as great as you think that sounds.
So if you would like that or any of the other selections, head on over to patreon.com/HMP. Vote on the show that we watch. And I think
we're not going to tell you which way to go with this, but be a dirty baby.
Yeah. If you'd like official Dirty Baby merch, I think we might we might be able to drum up some Dirty Baby merch. And I also
like the Gerber baby, but with flies buzzing around.
Yeah. I'm telling you, I've already it's picturing in my head already. I'm kind of already on board with Dirty Baby merch, and we're going to put it on actual baby merchandise as well.
Guys, you're first of all, you're what's in your head first out, Bruce, is wrong, because what you got is you got a baby smoking.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a scar on the face. Maybe there's some 5 o'clock shadow, or maybe it's just that Van Halen cover.
That's where I was going. 1984
with the with stubble.
All right. Okay.
Or the Nirvana cover with
stubble
in a different place
in a cigarette. for all our dirty babies out there.
We don't know how, but this baby's underwater smoking.
I was a dirty baby.
He's so good.
Look at the turds floating behind the underwater baby.
Why are you trying to ruin the dirty babies? Why are you trying to ruin
this? This was a wholesome thing for the family, and you turned it bad.
This is like angry thing. This isn't like they have special needs or something. My word.
He's just.
I was a dirty baby.
They poop on themselves when they're.
No, they don't. No, they watch Transor Z and they go outside and they like play guys in the backyard.
You're not pitching loafs in the backyard. I play croquet out there.
Dirty baby croquet. All right. I would normally at this point play a trailer. There's no trailer for English.
What?
I've tried. I looked and I thought about playing the Japanese, but that's just gonna be. It's even worse than.
I found a trailer here. Hi, I'm Captain Harlock.
was
Come
pretty.
be a pirate with me. Bum, 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 bum.
Your voice doesn't sound old enough because the guy who's doing the voice of Captain Harlock in the English translation is like Superman's age in the Super Friends. The guy who's doing the voiceover for that.
Yes.
Where it's almost like this when he's talking.
I am a
Back in my day.
So let's pretend I did that and then just head on to this portion of the program.
It's time for Bruce's Comic Book Connection.
All right, Bruce, what you got?
Captain Harlock was created by Leiji Matsumoto and first appeared in the Space Pirate Captain Harlock manga back in 1977. As a heroic yet roguish space pirate, his philosophy of life is fiercely individualistic. Though opposed to the enemies of humanity, he does not bow down to human authority, kind of how Adam pretends to be. Now, in Harlock's own words, he, quote, fights for no one's sake, only for something deep in his heart, end quote. Living 1,000 years in the future in the year 2977, Harlock's world is one in which the humans of Earth have fallen into despair after being dominated in galactic wars by alien races. But Harlock denies defeat and leads an outlaw crew aboard his starship Arcadia to undertake daring raids against Earth's oppressors. Harlock gained a significantly larger following in 1978 when his self-titled manga was adapted into an anime. And his fandom extended far enough around the world to rock America. Did I say rock? Why, yes, I did, because New Jersey punk metal icon Glenn Danzig is a Captain Harlock fan. Yes, such a fan, in fact, that he actually made his own Captain Harlock shirts featuring the stylized skull and crossbones that serves as the logo for both Captain Harlock and his space pirate ship. You guys remember the old... like early 80s Misfits pictures where he had the skull and crossbones? That was Captain Harlock skull and crossbones. Danzig even made gloves with the Harlock logo on them. Fingerless, of course, because he's cool. Yeah. And he wore his hair covering one eye. Danzig wore one of his homemade Harlock shirts for the photo shoot for one of the Misfits album covers and became so associated with the logo in North America that merchandise bearing that particular skull and bones is generally marketed as the, quote, Danzig Harlock logo. When asked if he created his style after the Captain Harlock anime, Danzig said, no, that's stupid. I'm a fan of the manga. No lie, that was his quote. So there you have it. Just imagine Danzig belting out, Mother, Captain Harlock just flew on by, while you watch a space pirate who was born in the same year as Colombian pop sensation Shakira. And speaking of Colombian pop sensations, Adam, do you have a list?
Oh, my list don't lie, let me tell you. If that comic book connection wasn't enough for you, let me sell everybody on this bad boy, because this sucker's got everything. It's an 80s anime that I think is actually a little bit of a love letter to 2001: A Space Odyssey. We also got classic small fighter planes, giant futuristic airships, fancy mustachioed poetry, Goo Goo Dolls haircut 25 years earlier. We got dudes with eyebrows that turn into mutton chops, ladies without iris, pupils, or a mouth, a.k.a. the perfect woman. Oh, come on. You know I don't have any women around. Sam Elliott mustache, great quotes like, books will never help you, and take your food coupons and get lost. Go anywhere. There's nothing for you to do. You will never have another chance to fly again. You understand? And eat now or you'll starve to death. We've also got Prime Minister David Crosby smoking in a nightclub / luncheon, a food fight, butt grabbing, casually peeing in front of new acquaintances. We got tanks galore. People who owe the people that own the Jolly Roger rights must be raking it in on this sucker. We got Switzerland. Bet you didn't see that one coming. Gun blast to the arms and the eyes, and it's an 80s anime, so all the ladies look like a kawaii Gwyneth Paltrow. This movie has everything.
Good job there, Adam. Nice list.
That was pretty good.
Man,
I never heard
of this. I don't know where to get started with this. I'll say that this was my first exposure to this property at all. I was not familiar with Captain Harlock in the least, but I was absolutely confused when I start watching it, and there's a guy in a biplane trying to fly over some mountains in New Guinea, and without what I would consider a suitable explanation, we suddenly go into a spaceship. Like, were you guys jarred at all by that transition, or did you feel like it made perfect sense to go from flying a biplane against a witch into outer space?
For me, it was. I had originally thought, and I've seen some other things that have quickly shown me otherwise. But I had thought like, oh, this is this character at this old age going in for one last route, right? And then we're going to flash back to when he was younger and then see what led up to this particular moment. But that's not exactly the case.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was doing like this reverse time thing where we see like his great grandfather being old, and then they get a little younger as we move forward in time. Kind of like the opposite of what I expected.
Who also oddly has like, am I not mistaken here? He's got the goggles on, but he's only got one eye, or at least they only focus on one eye.
They've got the exact same scar too, like
right?
Across how many generations? That's just a little bit. You know, I'm a stickler for continuity and realism in my cartoons.
But at the same time,
that exact same scar across at least a minimum of 3 generations was just a bridge too far.
Yeah, that's what I thought was strange, and while it was a little bit tough, and I think at least with the one that we ended up seeing here, and you can see it as far as this recording is when this one comes out, is on Peacock and everything. None of the actual Japanese has some subtitles up there, so I'm sure there's some things that would have clued us in on things that were going on, or like 6 months earlier or some crap like that would start to inform us a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't see any kind of title cards like that.
Or at least at the beginning, right?
Did we all watch the dub?
I did.
Yeah, I watched the dub also.
Only thing that's out there as far as I know.
So, oh no, I ran across the subtitle. I actively chose the dub.
I saw there's the it's non-subtitle, but it is the actual one on YouTube, the actual Japanese voice on YouTube, but no English subtitles there. So
I
you're
had
out
a
of luck
choice
there.
between the subtitled version and the dub version, but I didn't watch it on Peacock. I watched it on Midnight Pulp.
I watched it on Freevee.
It's nice. It's everywhere, guys.
Man,
so
you throw a
if
stick,
you
you're going to hit
this
this.
yet, there's no excuse. It's available for free everywhere you look.
They're just giving it away. You can't stop them. Had you guys ever seen this character before, or elements of the characters in this show? Because I know for sure
was Glenn Danzig's T-shirt. Like, that was
I know for sure I have seen tons of people dressed up as characters from this anime at Dragon Con and other comic booky type things and stuff. So like it's finally nice to match up a story to the cosplays I've been seeing.
Did you see anybody dressed in a way that looked like a cross between the stage manager on the Muppets and the Hamburglar?
Hey, if I did, boy, I would be taking some pictures of it. I love that character.
Oh man, he come on! Everybody knows that's my favorite character. As soon as he shows up, legs
instantly. It seemed to me though that they were using the wrong voice, the English voice
for like everybody.
Well, that too. But that happens when you hire 3 people to do all of the voiceover work for a cartoon.
And when it started off with the old guy flying his biplane, that dub work was horrible. Mm-hmm. And I was prepared to really, really not like this movie. But then by the time I'm at the midpoint of the movie, I'm really feeling it. Like, this movie won me over. And I think that the dub voiceover work got better or I just got used to it, but it was really
I think
bad.
you got used to it.
Yeah, that is what happens. It's pretty bad.
It is overall, it is the weakest part of this, and the thing that ultimately made me go like, man, if I was watching, an actual language version with subtitles, I'd maybe a lot happier than I am with this.
And this is kind of like an origin story. This is a prequel basically, because the anime was on from 1978 for about 4 years, I guess, and this came out as sort of a prequel movie. So that's kind of cool too. You could kind of jump into this and you don't have to know what's going on in the anime, but it probably helped you if you did to give it a little more patience, or maybe some moments seemed a little more cool to you if you knew what they were.
So have you seen anything else from this franchise then?
Not yet, but I'll probably check some other stuff out. I was surprised at how much I was feeling this movie at the midpoint, but I did feel like it could have had a really good ending at about an hour and 10 minutes in. Like, at the moment where he declares he's a pirate, and he says, when you see my flag, you better peel off, that kind of thing. Like, that would have been a great moment to just end the movie, and he goes off on his adventures, and it goes on for about another hour. It
feels to me like there's 3 different episodes, or whatever you want to call it.
What could have at least been that, for sure.
The ending to
a short movie and 2 episodes.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were 3 ending points. I know exactly what you're saying there.
But overall, like, I mean, I liked it, but I think the main problem that I seem to have had with a lot of these things that we've been doing this month is that it does get to that, 2 hour and 10 minute runtime here. And it was just like, man, if this was 90 minutes, I think I'd be so pleased with this, because it was
I would have been really psyched up to go watch the anime if it ended at about an hour and 20.
Yeah, because, I mean, just going on, and it feels like we come across some of the same things that we had last week with Gundam and everything, which is a lot of, like, and they're pretty, don't get me wrong, they are very pretty and super cool looking and everything, but a lot of the just, sailing in and loadout kind of stuff is like, okay, I mean, I like it. It looks neat. It
wasn't nearly as redundant, though, as Gundam.
Not as bad. Not as bad.
Not anywhere near.
No.
With Gundam.
But there is a little bit where it's just like, okay, all right, we get it. Can we move on to the next thing? Because I feel like there's a couple times where you just feel like you're treading water for a little bit.
In the first 30 minutes or so, I'm going to say about the first 30 minutes. I don't have timestamps on when things happen, but it really felt like it was just all about atmosphere and tone, and there wasn't much story there. And then when they go back to World War II, that's when I start to feel a little bit of a story. And I was at my peak, I would say, right about the midpoint when he's finally declared himself to be a pirate. And then I was starting to think, oh man, this would have had me feeling so good if it ended here. And then it went on to the duel, and it pulled me back in a little bit with the duel. And then it kind of had like this nice, almost Star Trek-esque, the 2 ships flying off together at the end, that really had me ending on a high note. So it was a little bit of I don't know if a roller coaster ride makes it sound more exciting. What I mean is there were moments when I was really high on it, and moments where I got low on it, moments when I got high on it again. And
I think that the ship duel is the coolest part of this movie. It's so cool. It's so interesting. It is not at all what I expected from this.
It's a lot more like hard sci-fi ship battle than what I expected from this anime. I expected it to be more Star Wars-esque.
Yeah, me too. I didn't even expect the ships to duel. When they were talking about duel, I thought they were talking about, walking out into a field somewhere and shooting at each other.
Yeah. I also kind of thought, though, when you consider battleship to battleship combat a duel, I think it's really more about who's got the better ship than it is who's the better captain. I just got to say, unless you're in identical ships. Like, back in the old days when people would duel with pistols at dawn, they would have a set of dueling pistols where you each had the same identical pistol. It's not like one guy showed up with an old rusty 22 from a pawn shop, and the other guy has like a Desert Eagle 44. I mean, you have to have the same firepower.
Trying to pull that long gun out of your pants is also a real turd. Come on. Geez, I'm never quick enough on the draw with this thing. I
want to pull out the gun like Jim Carrey did in The Mask. The long gun.
Well, how else are you supposed to respond when somebody in the media, somebody in the newspapers, calls your brother a dandy? I mean, you're gonna duel at dawn.
I say so.
At dawn.
How dare you? But let's talk about the dubbing.
Let's talk about the dubbing, because I got better with it pretty quickly, because I think I got pulled into it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the biggest thing is that like no voice that comes out of a person's face sounds like it belongs.
Right.
Also,
none of it.
I'm going to say, from a recording and technical perspective, it sounds kind of amateurish, because the vocals just sound so a little too hot. It feels like somebody who doesn't know what they're doing is getting their mouth right on the microphone and just trying to say
someone was eating the microphone for sure.
That's also sometimes that's also something people do when they have like really crappy mics and stuff. They'll just kind of get right on it and everything. It's like, no, it's deeper, it's fuller, it's a better mic. No, you're just eating it.
I mean, all animation is ADR, right? Like that's how animation works.
They don't do it live. Yes, you are correct.
This really sounded this really sounded like bad ADR in a live action movie.
Hey Bruce, you seen that new Chippendales movie? You're gonna blow your cap, dude. Some of them don't even get second takes. That's the worst part. Uh-oh. What with the unions and all.
Chipmunks can only work 4 hours a day.
They gotta go to school.
You know how hard it is to find a chipmunk tutor in LA?
You know what I realized today? I'm sorry for getting us off course. It's one of you can bring us back on after I mention this. What I noticed today watching the Chippendale movie is that John Mulaney's voice is he's basically like someone from the 40s.
Yeah.
Like I could totally see him like walking into a room and going, "Boy, this party sure is a corker."
There's some show that like him and Nick Kroll do where they're like old men. And they have like a 2-person show. They just get up, they're makeup and everything, and like old people, and just have an entire B session. That's the show. Mm-hmm. I heard it's pretty good. Listen, I love all of the ship stuff. The ship stuff is really cool. Yeah. I like discovering this thing, but here's where a lot of my problems come with this outside of just the dubbing. That's obviously very superficial, but as far as the story goes, I'm so confused with like the different timestamps, if you will, because the people that eventually have like the little Japanese guy who makes the big ship and everything, who kind of promises him, hey, over the years or whatever, I'll take care of you because you were nice to me, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, our bloodlines will always be connected or something like that.
And so somehow everybody looks the same for a couple of generations, which, okay, sure. But following that kind of logic and just being able, that was my biggest problem with this, is just kind of following the string and realizing that these are not all the same people the entire time.
You were having difficulty with that.
Yeah, that was what was. I don't know why it was just confusing to me.
I think you're allowed to watch it and just imagine that they are the same people and that they were reincarnated 1,000 years later.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, I like that a little more.
Is that Japanese mythos or something? I don't really understand that part.
I don't know. Especially, I don't know like why they decided that you could see your ancestors' videos of your ancestors' exploits in your DNA.
I thought that was kind of cool. That was a very interesting idea where they go, you two know
memory.
Yeah, you two, and that's another thing that I was confused about, right? Because they basically say, you two know each other, you just don't remember that you know each other, and then they go into the dream machine, if you will, to go back and see all this other stuff. And so I'm thinking, how do these guys not know they had this very big relationship with this gun sight and all this other stuff?
I think this was an excellent movie to watch the week after the Gundam movie because they take totally different responses to World War II.
Yeah.
The Gundam movie, as I said during the comic book connection, he was somewhat inspired by the crimes the Japanese committed against the Chinese during the Manchurian occupation. This movie is more like anti-American from the American occupation of Japan after World War II. Tokyo Rose is a heroic character in this movie. And of course, Tokyo Rose, a very anti-American propagandist during World War II. In the flashbacks, they do make a point that they're, fighting for the Axis in World War II. I mean, they do have Harlock say something like, it's just a paycheck, but they do, make the pretty bold choice to make the Axis powers the heroic representatives in this movie. I mean, this is a creator who remembers the history of Japan perhaps more patriotically than the creator of Gundam does.
Yes, I would totally agree with that. I think it's it was a really smart choice by the Americans who made this ready for American television to sort of not do the big rollout on this like they did with just about everything else, simply because of that fact. Looking at it through, there's good people on both sides, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there is. But in Reagan's 1981, this would not have gone over well at all. So it was nice. It was a pretty smart move not to roll it all out.
And, as opposed to the Gundam point of view that war is so awful and both sides get going to the point that they can't even recognize which one of us is the good guy and which one of us is the bad guy. Here, it takes the Captain Harlock point of view where, like, yeah, the Americans were bad guys for occupying Japan, but also the Japanese were bad guys for surrendering. Like, right. I am the star. I'm like the guy on Gilligan's Island who refuses to admit World War II is over and I've got my submarine. I'm going to shoot them all.
Is that the skipper?
No, there was an episode of Gilligan's Island.
I know.
This guy popped up.
I know.
But yeah, he takes the there were these Japanese military officials like in the jungles of the Philippines and stuff that were told don't surrender no matter what. And even when the war was over, it was like 1970 something when they finally got the last identified soldier to surrender, which is crazy. 30 years later, he's out there in the jungle. But that's kind of what Harlock's point of view is he is that crazy guy out in the jungle who refuses to acknowledge the war is over, kind of.
Can you imagine how peaceful that guy's life must have been though during those times, like
but imagine if you're just like going out into the woods to gather some, I don't know, firewood, fruit. I don't know what you go out in the woods. Maybe you're just going for exercise for a hike. And this crazy guy charges at you with a bayonet, screaming at the top of his lungs in tattered clothes.
No way.
Occasionally.
And you just got to be like, excuse me, sir, I am on a nature walk right now.
You guys aren't looking at this the right way. That dude, he didn't have to worry about like, oh, are my NFTs tanking? Like there's no email. Well, at that time, there's no email anyway. But like he's not like a man. I sure hope that they get that Nixon. Like there's none of that stuff. Like he's literally like there's nothing.
Right.
There's just nature, and he's got food source, and he's got beachfront property because he's on an island. Yeah.
But here's the problem with that though. Like I agree, but at the same time,
property taxes.
You have this one other thing to where in his head it's still going on, and if he lets his defenses down for half a second, he's out of luck. So
you know what? You're right.
His butt's been tight for 25 years.
You're
that's
right.
No good.
He's on high alert the entire time, and that's no good. You're right.
He's way more stressed. He'd rather be watching some Laverne and Shirley as opposed to.
Yeah, the story I heard is they actually had to find his former commanding officer who just like had some job as a businessman in Tokyo and like fly him to the Philippines and go up into the forest and tell the guy it was okay to surrender because like he was really harassing the locals and like nobody wanted to just go shoot this old man in the woods who keeps charging at us because, he'd been out of ammunition for who knows how long. So he wasn't shooting at anybody. He was still running at him. And like trying to stab him.
in my head canon, that guy has to dress up like he used to in order for him. So he looks like the guy in Rambo, where he's just in First Blood, where he's wearing that costume and just goes, "I'm sorry, son, you got to come in. No, we finally need you. It's time for you to come home." They had to dress up his old sergeant like that. Yeah. That's my hope.
Nothing is over.
It's time for you to wrap it up.
He's Japanese Rambo. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, or
as I call him, 35 years, it's like 27th blood or something.
I call him Jambo.
But you know what? Despite the questionable morality of the inspiration behind Captain Harlock, and despite really being turned off by the VO when it first started, I was really getting into this story and these characters. There's something about it that beyond just the Hamburglar guy, there's something about it that was just connecting with me. Did you guys find yourself getting pulled more into it? Like by the end, were you really feeling like this wasn't a painful 2 hours and 10 minutes like it was last week?
Oh yeah. This does not have the same 2 hour and 15 minute runtime as last week's 2 hour and 15 minutes. Like this is a much easier watch. And I do have to say this as well. Like, if you were just to show me what the character looks like on this show, just from a still, I would never watch this thing in a million years.
Your first blush is automatically no, thank you.
Yes. Oh, this is ridiculous anime. Like I don't care. I don't want to watch it. But and like looking at the tech of the ship and stuff, like all of that stuff. If I'm just seeing a still of it, like forget it. No way. But when you're in it, like, when we're forced to watch this thing this week, like that was like, I'm glad I was, because I did enjoy this story. And I do like how we get from A to B at the end of this story here. And it was kind of surprising, quite honestly.
And
Yeah.
so much it's so much of a show that relies on a ship's gun sights. I was
Yes.
I was just like, wow,
Yes.
what an interesting little quirk. I've never
Yeah.
seen anybody kind of go at that angle before.
The idea that a gun sight from a World War II Messerschmitt would work on a space pirate ship was pretty interesting. But yeah, I did like that thread through it all. But even beyond that, like I just thought it was really cool once he became a pirate and he was just being bold and they boarded the ship. You know, he when they were going after him at the end after he wins the duel, and the way he just kind of takes out their whole fleet. And he really like flexes on him and says, "This way, next time you see my flag, you know, you better go the other direction." I just like the swagger that he had there. I love the costume when he goes from the red like Earth Navy costume to that black pirate costume with the skull and crossbones on it. I just liked all that. In the beginning, you know, he's like being portrayed as a tough guy because he's just holding the guy's hand and squeezing it until it hurts or whatever. And I'm looking at the skinny arms and legs on this character and I'm not buying it. And then at the end, when he's like standing up as, you know, this great commander of a ship that he really is, you can have skinny arms and legs and be good at that. And I think there's one scene where he has this, you know, he pulls out this cool sword that's a laser gun, but it looks like a sword. I love that scene too. But he shoots the guy in the head like so quickly. It just has some great flexing moments. I mean, if you're into cool stuff and people looking cool and being cool, it's a cool cartoon.
I think there's Captain Tryhard with this character as well. But when you're watching the show, you don't get that feeling. It's just when you're, you know, outside of it, looking at it, you're like, oh boy, somebody was really going for it here. And it's again, I'm very surprised because especially right from the jump of this show, you know, watching Gundam last week and then watching this week, it was like, oh boy, here we go again. Like one of those, especially.
It did automatically feel like we were delving right back into the exact same program that we had just like, oh, throw a couple new characters in here, and that's all the only difference. And it's thankfully not that.
I mean, there's a key difference. Gundam probably has the better message, and there's the reason it's had the stronger franchise because Gundam, our protagonist, our hero, is miserable from fighting by the end of that movie. I mean, he's literally catatonic in his fighting scene. Here, this guy, the more the movie goes on, the more he flexes on his enemies. So this guy's strutting his stuff, whereas the Gundam guy is ready to be in a padded cell by the end of the movie.
Well, the other part to this too is that this is meant for one big story, whereas the Gundam thing was a couple of episodes smashed together, you know?
Yeah, it was like 15 episodes. Yeah.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, but it still had an overarching story, but it was a much longer form story than that.
And it was just super boring in the middle. Like, I mean, unbelievably boring in the middle.
Like they really could have cut there's 3 of those movies. And I believe they really could have cut them all down into one.
Oh, wow.
And hit the key points. I mean, you may have to like reanimate it. You may not just be able to recycle what you got, but the story, you hit your key points. You have the subplot you need with Char. You show the toll that war has taken on Amuro. And you don't need a whole lot of the repetitive battles, but you do need those battles week to week in a TV show. But we're not here to talk about Gundam. We already did that. We're here to talk about Space Pirate Captain Harlock, which was a pleasant surprise for me.
I also loved how when it's time for the ship's big giant escape and everything, that it doesn't even find a door to go out of. It just straight goes, well, we're going up and we're going through the ceiling, right through the walls.
That was my second favorite part. It just crushing infrastructure as it goes out the top of the thing.
And it's purely an aesthetic choice or matter of taste, but I thought that ship design was killer. I love the big skull and crossbones on the front of it, like just a big, almost like a battering ram on the front, and then it's got the little wooden cabin on the back that has like a little, you know, almost like a steampunk feel to it. And I just love the look of that ship. And it really
I like how different it is from everything else that we've seen so far. You know, there is a very different feel to this than there is to the aesthetic of anything else we've seen.
And I really love how they mix a little fantasy flair, like they put a little bit there to be reminiscent of a pirate ship, But then they also take a hard sci-fi approach where really once you're in space, all you need is a big cylinder. Like you don't need to be aerodynamic when there's no air and that kind of stuff. So I really like that. You know, it looks very different from any other ship we see. And as a kid, I was always mesmerized by like how the Enterprise does not look like a sleek, fast spaceship, but it's always doing these battles and everything. And it's all about physics rather than, you know, what you would do in the Earth's atmosphere. So I really got a kick out of the ship. I thought it was a pretty killer design. I loved it.
One of the things that kind of surprised me is still, again, we're looking at a 40-year-old anime here, and there are some, you know, for lack of a better word, camera moves that are done with this that you just go, there's no reason that had to be done. Like just going from like a pilot character who's flying the plane at the beginning, you could think about this one. He's flying the little biplane there at the beginning, and this shot goes like dollies around him as he's shooting and flying through the air, and you watch and you're just like, what they're doing right there is so difficult to pull
it's
off.
Be tough to animate.
And the fact that they were doing it 40 years ago, you know, it was all by hand. It's just astounding how much work has been put into this thing. And especially, obviously, you know, 80s anime, the backgrounds are always still just absolutely gorgeous and stuff. But some of the camera moves are just, I was really wild by a whole bunch of it. And you mentioned the ships and stuff earlier. This is kind of something that struck me as well. Is again, 1982. Think of how much space has happened within, you know, just the 40 years prior to this. And even, you know, 80 years prior to that, as far as like space in cinema, how fast things have come, how much of it iterates so quickly, because when you watch this, there's so much that you can see that, you know, later comes up in like James Cameron stuff. Again, there's a lot of like, you know, very Kubrickian sort of, you know, flares throughout this movie altogether with how stuff is shown and shot, and certainly of the sound design, which again, another one.
Hold on, Adam, because you're losing your grip here.
I'm going to a lot of places.
What is your initial point of it being 40 years and then you jump to 80? What was your initial point for that?
Just as far as space has gone, we've gone from, you know, from Earth to the moon, the actual, you know, the thing in the 1900s where, you know, the ship goes up, hits the moon in the eye. And
I see what you're saying.
All the way up to like in such a short amount of time, how the language of space and space travel and what we want to see in that stuff has been translated from us not even knowing that was an actual possibility for us to actually going to space, to then showing us like science fiction ramped up so fast from, you know, the early 60s into the 80s. It's kind of astounding. And just so many of the parallels and influences.
That's how the 20th century was. We went from Kitty Hawk to the moon in 66 years.
It's pretty wild. And
I know. It's pretty wild. So, of course, the fiction is going to follow that kind of pace. Also, I mean, I think it's kind of ambitious. This person isn't just trying to tell an action story. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with this point of view, but you know you're aiming high. Whether or not you achieve it is another conversation, but you know you're aiming high when your title is basically a paraphrased Goethe quote. Like, not everybody's throwing Johann Wolfgang Goethe quotes up as the title of their animated movies, and especially not in 1981.
I mean, I do.
Well, I know what it is. I know the quote, Bruce, because I'm smart. But but maybe there's people in the audience who don't know what the quote is that you're talking about.
Come on, that's impossible. We have a very intelligent audience.
Well, okay. You saw through my clever ruse. At the end of their lives, all men look back and think their youth was Arcadia. And Arcadia, of course, is another word for utopia. So everybody remembers their own childhood as utopia, and that's why you get this thing where every generation, as they get to be older, wants to say, like, man, the world was so much better when I was your age. I mean, we've seen this firsthand. Sure.
And
I mean, I'm doing it right now with my kids about the 90s.
Yeah, and it's the same way with the boomers in the 70s and early 80s and stuff like that. And basically, it's just human nature that everyone has like the chemicals going around in your brain as a child so that you remember your youth as better than it was, basically.
Sure.
Oh, man, I remember back to my youth in 2012. Oh, boy,
those
were way better times.
You know, Bruce, I'm going to tell you something. I learned something here today.
What's that?
That's a quote. That Arcadia of My Youth is just a bastardized quote. from
Goethe.
that philosopher that you just mentioned, and you just mentioned again, and I didn't catch the name.
Johann Wolfgang von Goethe.
Goethe.
Johann
Goethe.
Sebastian Bach. We all,
Sebastian Bach.
From-
Even Park Avenue leads to Skid Row. But and you kind of see that playing out in the movie though, because we see like the World War I guy flying his biplane over the mountains. He thinks he has found his place in the world, and then the World War II guy flying his plane has found his place in the world, and then we get to the Captain Harlock flying his pirate ship through space, and he's found his place in the world, and it's just like they all think they found their utopia, but as an outsider watching, we see that it's in none of those situations are they in really great places. None of them, even though they all call their ships Arcadia, none of them are actually in Arcadia, though they think they are.
Flying to a screaming lady head. It's just
And you could say this might be how a guy who creates manga in 1977. I wonder how old he was at the time, but he may be remembering like his youth. Let's see, he was born in 1938, so he would have been 7-8 years old at the end of World War II. So, man, if he thought his youth was Arcadia, that would be crazy. But, you could see this might be why he's got this weird point of view about the way World War II played out.
I remember when the bombs used to put me to sleep at night. The only time I felt comfortable.
Well, I sure do miss the Nazis. Boy, things were great when the Nazis were around.
Screaming death.
Everything was good until the Americans moved into Japan.
Man, and let me tell you this. You call that a Mazda, not me. It's always going to be Datsun for me.
All right, that's Nissan, but I don't want to call you out the show.
Oh, why?
Sorry.
Man, I'm getting everything.
Oh, man, I got a great Mazda story I'll tell someday.
I'm the idiot. I was the idiot this episode, Adam.
Hey, listen.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So finally, it's the weight has been lifted off my shoulder for at least one episode. 450.
Does it feel good? Does it feel good? Because I usually feel great.
It's
but
a little.
This episode.
It's a little relieving, to be frank.
So in the World War II dogfight scenes when they're in the airplanes, did you find yourself cheering for the Nazi to shoot down the British pilots?
It all looked really good. I was astounded
I was
at how well.
pulling for Harlock. I couldn't help it. I didn't want him to get shot down.
Man, Harlock can chug it.
Allies. Harlock the second or whatever his name was.
Yeah, he was the second. Junior.
Yeah. Now, welcome to your 13th birthday. Here's your present. Now we're gonna scar your face so you look like all the rest of your ancestors. What's that now? Shut up. Hold still.
How come my scar looks like Donkey Kong's teeth? Don't worry about that.
It makes you look cool. All the chicks will love it. All those chicks that look like an anime Gwyneth Paltrow.
Oh man, the eyelashes and the eyeballs that were bigger than their head. They did have a particular way. Like at one point, I thought, are those two different women, or is that one woman wearing a wig part of the time? But I did like Queen Esmeralda's.
I like how they got sent away in the Spock sunglasses cube. With the little pirate thing on them when they died. Yeah. They sent them off into space, and they're like, "Peace out." Something about that was really fun. I don't know why, but it was. Oh, now, I guess this thing has gone on to do like a buttload of these things, because while I was searching through YouTube for like a trailer, of which I didn't find, I did see like a like 3D animated kind of like Final Fantasy. You remember the Final Fantasy movie? 14.
Yeah, I think 2013, 2014 was the most recent entry.
Yeah, and it's kind of wild. So at least, thank heavens, in the one that I watched, it was like dubbed, and Harlock had at least a decent dubbing voice, which I was like, whew, thank heavens. But like really neat to just kind of see this whole thing in wild computer animation and stuff. How
far into the uncanny valley is it?
It's not horrible. Like it looks like a really like a top-notch video game.
Oh, nice. That's not bad.
But I would say, not as wild as The Spirits Within, but close.
It's not like Reboot.
No, it's close. It's closer to it's closer to Gears of War than anything. That's what it kind of looked like to me.
That's Captain Harlock Dimensional Voyage you're talking about.
Yeah, so I mean, they've been rolling on with this, and the guy that apparently that did the voice of Harlock had done it all the way up until like even the early 2010s or something like that in a video game or whatever. So the original voice guys had been doing it for quite some
Japanese
time.
guy.
Yeah, the one that probably did a good job.
He's no longer with us, I don't think.
Yeah, a couple years ago, from what the internet says. But listen, overall, I having not really known anything going in, definitely caught me off guard, and I think Matthew had a very interesting choice here for us this week.
Yeah, it's interesting for sure.
I appreciate it. It's not one I would have been likely to find on my own.
Yeah, and Mr. Vandiver, I'm going to tell you this right now. This was a good pick. Still doesn't give you a free pass on your terrible Die Hard take on Twitter.
We can't all.
Oh man, I got to tell you though that 2013 movie, just looked it up, cost $30 million to make. It was the most expensive anime film of all time at the time it was made.
Oh my!
No way. There's no way that's true. There's no way that's true with the Pixar stuff.
Anime, not animated.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, Japanese.
You forgot the Italian anime. Doing it wrong.
Yeah.
All right, before we get to our final grade and everything, we have to ask ourselves one very important question: is how this 40-year-old anime? Well, he did it with 41-year-old anime last week. Why can't he do it with 40-year-old anime? How does this connect 1-to-1 with Sylvester Stallone?
Well, this one was a whole lot harder. I'm not going to lie to you there. Last week was easy breezy compared to what I had to, the hoops I had to jump through this week. Thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement.
Oh.
Hello, Mr. Stallone. Today, I'd like to speak to you about your appearance on the Mike Douglas Show in 1978. You were promoting your movie, Paradise Alley, and you also brought on the professional wrestler Terry Funk, who was also in that movie. I've seen the interview, and I have to say it was pretty great how you let Terry Funk just take over the entire segment. He killed. That Mike Douglas audience thinks Terry Funk is the most hilarious person to ever be born, and you let him do it. And that's a great little bit of television. And if you haven't seen it recently, Mr. Stallone, it's on YouTube, and the time capsule aspect of that particular episode is a real selling point for watching it. It's pretty amazing. Now, if you'll allow me to go backwards for a second, I barely remember there was a daytime talk show called The Mike Douglas Show because I was a very little Sweet Shanzi. I was a very dirty baby back then. When the show was on. And if I was going to describe the show to someone who had never seen it, I would say it's the 70s version of the Wendy Williams Show. Except I don't think he had a big following in the gay community. That's what Merv Griffin was for back then. Anyway, I bring all this up because in 1979, Mike Douglas had a guest on named Lanny Broyles. He happened to be on the show promoting his new movie, Battle Beyond the Stars, which is absolutely going to be an episode of my future Patreon-only podcast called Shanzi Loves Spaceships. Because for those not in the know, Battle Beyond the Stars isn't just a cheap Star Wars knockoff. It's the world's greatest cheap Star Wars knockoff. And Lanny Broyles played the role of Timbo Malmori. And Mr. Stallone, I'm so glad that he did that because of this fact, I have a Stallone connection for this week. Literally, this is the reason why. Because as it turns out, voicing the English dove of Captain Harlock himself was Lanny Broyles. If I believed in Satan, I would thank him because surely anything dealing with Hollyweird couldn't be the Lord's work.
No.
And there you have it. This week's Stallone connection is Lanny Broyles, who hasn't had a credit on his resume since 1989. Your pal, Sweet Shanzi from the internet.
So I read that Lanny, he got sick of America or whatever, and then like moved to Japan and just got some voice acting work, and that's just kind of what he did.
That makes sense to me.
He's just like, I don't like it here.
That was an option.
Yeah, you could just leave and just start going like, hey, do you guys need some voiceover work done? And they're like, okay, sure.
Eat a peach, dude. I'm going to Japan.
Why not?
I heard you could go to North Korea and play the villain in lots of movies they make there.
All right, here at Hero Movie Podcast, we have our own patented Robin rating system. Bruce, where does Arcadia of My Youth fall on the Robin rating system for you?
It's one that at first I was worried I was not going to have a good time, but I found myself really liking this character and liking this world. It was a nice, pleasant surprise. And, there's a whole lot about like managing expectations, and my expectations were pretty darn low for this. So the enjoyment that I had, since it came as a surprise, it lifts it up to like the Tim Drake. Whereas if I'd went into it hoping for it to be that level, maybe I'd have a different thing to say. But yeah, I'm giving this a Tim Drake. I really found myself liking this world and wanting to, I think I'd really enjoy going back and checking out episodes where I could watch, 20-minute bursts.
Yeah, I think that may be a little bit helpful for you. Sean?
I was pleasantly surprised by this as well. I'm going to give it a high Damian Wayne. I think that it's something that I'm probably not going to revisit just because it's not my jam, but I like what it is. Like it's good for what this thing is. It's just not my jam. So hi Damian Wayne.
I'm just on a regular Damian Wayne myself. I liked it well enough. I think one of the big problems and I'll be honest, I think if I would have watched this with the original language and subtitles, it would probably go up an entire grade, I think. But overall, just a little bit too long for my taste. But I think I'm with Bruce. I like the idea of 20, 30-minute chunks of this kind of thing. And I like the idea of kind of seeing where this sort of deal went in the future. Like I said, with that 3D animated, Arcadia thing, I wouldn't mind looking at something like that just to see, especially with this series where they're like, here's World War II, here's World War I, and now here's, super crazy space, future thing. I don't know. It feels like it might work to have, the technology and everything jump to change stuff up. I don't know. And for $35 million, it's got to be good, right?
Yeah,
probably.
They spent all the money. If you spend money on it, it's got to be good. That always translates. Always.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look at the Postman, Waterworld.
Yeah. I mean, listen.
Supergirl.
They spent a lot of money on Morbius, and it all shows on the screen.
It does. It's all there for you.
You're there. I mean, we had to pay. Never mind. Okay. I was going to say something really bad. Anyway, so that is it, everybody. We got another one of these under our belt here, and more anime is coming your way in May because next week, again, as we said, it is our Patreon vote time. Again, let's go over those choices for you. We have Attack on Titan. We're going to watch the first 6 episodes of that. We'll have maybe an episode or two of Star Wars Vision, or a movie called Your Name, or a movie, this one's not a movie, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, what's the arc again? I should write this down.
SHOU. Show Tucker.
Show Tucker. Not to be confused with Chris Tucker. Show Tucker.
Or Show Nuff of The Last Dragon.
See, or that one either. Don't get them confused. Or Transor Z. So those choices will be up for you. Patreon.com/HMP. Again,
I think for the vote, you should put Transor Z with boob rockets, because that will let the voters know it will.
Okay, Transor Z, and I'm going to put parenthetical boob rockets.
It's episode 56.
Episode 56. I don't know. Maybe I should just keep boob rockets in there as opposed to, the 56 only gets them so far. You know what I'm saying?
Look, true dirty babies know that it's going to be episode 56.
Fair enough. So cast your dirty baby votes over at patreon.com/HMP. Again, it doesn't matter what level you support at, you are able to vote for all of these fun things and get all the pre-show, post-show Dinger Zone. And again, a big giant thank you to everyone who continues to support this show over at patreon.com. That'll do it for this episode. We'll talk about what we're doing next week in just a second. Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
Well, I'm back at making some of those YouTube videos. I got a nice crossover between Attack on Titan and John Wick that I threw up to let people know I'm back. And I'll have some more reaction videos and some reviews and stuff coming out this week. So go back to youtube.com/C/Bruce Leslie for Anime Dad Action.
Mr. Boob Rockets, what else we got?
Oh, man, we've got a new podcast coming out next week called Obi-Wan 30 Questions. It's in the Star Wars feed that we got there. It was The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, and now we are an Obi-Wan 30 Questions podcast. Check that out.
It transfers all over the place. You don't even have to subscribe to a new thing. Most of you are probably already subscribed to that to begin with.
If you're already subscribed, you're going to have yourself to Obi-Wan.
You done did it already. And again, thank you to all of those people who will be sending us those 30 questions at StarWars30Q@gmail.com. And we really appreciate all of those folks, because it's really great when those first episodes come out and you guys have actually written in with questions and stuff, and we don't have to beg for the questions and make people go like, oh, we swear people listen to this show, honest for true, but you guys do, and we really appreciate all of you sending those in and continuing to give us fun stuff to watch. That'll do it, everybody. Join us next week when we're talking your Patreon vote for Sweet Sean's and Kovacs from the Internet. Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Forgers. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie. You're the original Dirty Babies.
Woohoo!
Everybody, listen to me and return me my ship. I'm your captain. I'm your captain. Though I'm feeling mighty sick, I've been lost now, days uncounted, and it's months since I've seen home. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Or am I all alone? If you return me to my home port, I will kiss you, Mother Earth. Take me back now, take me back now to the port of my birth. Am I in my cabin dreaming, or are you really scheming to take my ship away from me? You'd better think about it. I just can't live without it. So please don't take my ship from me. Yeah, I can feel the hand of a stranger, and it's tightening around my throat. Heaven help me, heaven help me. Take this stranger from my boat. I'm your captain, I'm your captain. Though I'm feeling mighty sick, everybody listen to me and return me my ship. I'm your captain, yeah, 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 yeah. 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 I'm getting closer to my home. I'm getting closer to my home. I'm getting closer to my